Again, everyone, this is Frank Demore with the part 5 of today, which is March 21st of 2011. Now, if you've been watching the news, you've been seeing that there's been a lot of activity, especially in the Middle East, with all these nations that are coming against fighting each other. We've seen Egyptians fighting against Egyptians. We've seen the Tunisians fighting against the Tunisians. The Yemens fighting against the Yemens. We've seen Europe, people within their own nations in rioting amongst themselves. But as of late, the big news is coming out of, again, nations like Yemen and in Libya. But this is a byproduct of one part of the signs from Matthew 24:7, where the Lord warned us that in the last days, kingdom would fight against kingdom. And this is obviously all the civil unrest that we're seeing around the world today, and it seems like it's building wider and wider, and more nations are becoming involved in this struggle and turmoil. And so let me focus on, there's an article today, it says Yemen is definitely under fire again. And it says Ali Abdul Shia, the Yemeni president, has declared a nationwide state of emergency after a violent crackdown on anti-government protests killed at least 41 people and left scores more wounded in the capital, Sana'a. Shia said Friday that the decision to impose the state of emergency was made by the country's National Security Council, but there was more immediate indication of how long, or no immediate indication of how long it would last. The National Security Council announces the state of emergency across Yemen, and a curfew is set upon the armed people in all Yemeni provinces, and the security forces with the army will take responsibility for stability, he said. So there's definitely things that are taking place in the Middle East that are showing us that these prophecies are coming to pass. Then he went on to say he also expressed sorrow for what had happened today at the University Square. There's a lot of killing. The Rutgers News Agency reported that Shia as saying that it was clear that there were armed elements amongst the anti-government protesters, and that the clashes earlier in the day were between citizens and protesters, not protesters against security forces. In other words, citizens against citizens. Exactly what the Lord warned about. And at least 41 people were killed and scores wounded after Yemeni security forces opened fire on the protesters at the University Square. President announced a state of emergency after dozens are killed in a crackdown in anti-government protest. So the violence, the turmoil is continuing in the state of Yemen. And if you go to my website, I have a video there. You can see some of the what is going on. It's heartbreaking to see all the loss of life, but these are the things that are going to drive these prophecies, which were leading to the culmination of all of the fulfillment of prophecy, which will end up being fulfilled during a 7-year tribulation, which we're approaching. Now, also, we mentioned Syria. Syria is being armed by Israel, or by the Iranians, and Syria is an enemy of Israel, and they've been cursed. So it looks like part of this curse is definitely fallen on Syria, where Syria hasn't had too many of these demonstrations. But it says this, that the Syrian army deployed on Monday at the entrances of the south city of Darda, as officials tried to calm passions following protests for freedom in which 5 citizens were killed, residents said. Thousands of mourners marched at the funeral of a 23-year-old who died on Sunday. There was, of course, these riots, and this young man died. The latest of 5 protesters to be killed in security forces. Mourners chanted slogans demanding political freedom and an end to corruption. The slogan is to play on the words. The people want the overthrow of the regime. The rally cry of the revolutions that overthrew the enticed leaders of Tunisia and Egypt and spread across the Arab world. So they're just telling you like it is. It's in Syria now, it's in Yemen, it's in Lebanon, and it's spreading across the Middle East nations. And if you take a look, it's the nations who have come against Israel. And there's no, to me, it looks, if you listen to the Lord, and if he says that I'm going to curse those that come against Israel, and you see all the turmoil that's taking place in every one of these countries, it should, tell you something about what's happening. Now, to show you that these kinds of things are going to continue to take place, and you'll see that in the near future, as things calm down a little bit, there's going to be more focus again on Israel. Right now, these nations are fighting against themselves, and they don't have time to focus on Israel. But when things begin to calm down, as birth pains do, you'll see that they're going to turn towards Israel again and the peace process. I'll put a red flag up if you don't believe me. But we see that these people who are destined to wipe out Israel, at least they think that they're going to wipe out Israel, because it's not going to happen. They're never going to stop trying to do so. And we see this even as the news shows us that they're training these little kids to become killers. And if you go to my website, you'll see this, and they even have a movie where the kids, I watched this movie, you'll see it there, I have a link for it, and it broke my heart that adults are training these young minds to destroy. They're brought up in hatred, they're brought up hating people. It says documents have been uncovered just in recent days describing how Al-Qaeda recruits children as young as 14 for suicide missions, and how a report has been released revealing Muslims using television to indoctrinate even toddlers and school-age children into the culture of death. The new report comes from the Middle East Media Research Institute, which monitors media in the Middle East, translating reports and offers a commentary perspective on the meaning. Its new report, released today, is about a recent broadcast to the children of Egypt's El Khalaj television. I've probably pronounced that wrong, so forgive me. The organization has posted a video clip of the comments, and then you could watch this video clip there, and I'll tell you what it shows. It shows these children who are carrying these guns, and their toy guns, and they're begging the father to give them money. And you'll see it in this video. At the end, the whole deal is that the father's very proud of the kids. He gives them money. These are really young kids, to buy guns to kill the enemy, which is Israel. So you see that they are, and it even says in there, and I'm going to read you this one. It says, first of all, we tell the Jews that the Arabs lived in the blessed city of Jerusalem more than 2,000 years before the first Jews settled there. And this is what they're giving them these arms to go kill them, because they're in Jerusalem. They're teaching the young kids to kill Jews because the Jews are in Jerusalem. And Zechariah, God showed Zechariah Jerusalem was going to be a huge problem, a burdensome stone in the last days. And it has been. This is fulfillment of Bible prophecy. I don't care how you look at it, this is definitely fulfillment of Bible prophecy. Now, let me skip a little bit and go into the United States, because the United States has fallen apart. The United States has also fallen underneath the curse, because they have been trying to split up Israel and give East Jerusalem away. I'm going to read you this and tie it in. It says, cautioning that the federal dollars in your wallet will soon be a little more than green paper backed by broken promises. State Republican Bradley wants North Carolina to issue its own legal tender backed by silver and gold. The Republican from Youngsville has introduced a bill that would establish a legitimate commission to study his plan for a state currency. He also drafting a second bill that requires state governments to accept gold and silver coins as a payment for taxes and fees. So what you have here, and I warned you that you're going to hear about other states who want to come up and print their own money. Get rid of the money that we have right now and use their own currency, because the dollar is going to go bust. He knows this. This Republican knows this. Republican Glenn Bradley from North Carolina. And so here's another state that is getting ready for eventually what's going to happen, the crash of the dollar. And what's very interesting is, look what he wants to back it up with: gold and silver. Go to Revelation chapter 18 and read Revelation chapter 12, or verse 12 in that chapter of 18, because there's a list of things that the people living in the tribulation are going to be crying over when it's taken away. Two of those items is gold and the silver. And I've been warning you over the course of these many years, watch the price of gold and silver continue to climb, because if we see that people are crying over it, that tells us that it's going to be of high value. People are not going to be valuing God during that time. They're going to be valuing money, currencies, gold and silver. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that they want to get rid of the dollar and have a backing for gold and silver. You can just see what is happening here. The roads are all, I mean, just picture this. Roads, it's a big, huge circle around us. And every one of those roads are leading to the middle circle. All of them are merging, all the different directions. All of these different prophecies are merging down into one focused area. You know what that area is? That's Jerusalem. That area is Israel. And when the world comes against Israel, Zechariah chapter 12 will be fulfilled. And the only way that we can get there to that point, or you get there if you don't receive Jesus Christ as your Savior, because you'll be left behind to see all that. But the only way that that's going to happen is if the economy busts, the world economy is flipped. And then what happens is there's a new economy that will be run by the Antichrist. This Antichrist is going to control everything, and then he's going to force war during his reign, and at the end he will be converging with everybody else into Israel. And that's when Jesus Christ comes. And Zechariah tells us that Jesus is going to step on the Mount of Olives, and he's going to defeat the Antichrist, and he's going to defeat everybody who's been unrighteous at that time during the Battle of Armageddon. Now, when is that going to happen? Well, obviously the Lord tells us in Matthew 24. You could read verses 24 to 39. Jesus shows us that in the last days the generation would be just like that of the Sodom and Gomorrah. Read Matthew 24 through 37 through 39. And you'll see it there in Luke chapter 17, verse 25 through 30, as he likens the last generation as Noah and Sodom and Gomorrah. Homosexuality was running rapid during this time. We see that the same thing is happening now. And so it's very important to see that the conditions of the world are those same conditions as when Jesus was here. Now, let me get this. This is the newest news. For the first time nearly in a decade of polling, a majority of Americans say that they are in favor of the same-sex marriage, a survey released Friday showed. It says 53% of the Americans support gay marriage, and up to 20% points from the low 32% in 2004. The poll of 1,500 adults conducted over 4 days last week of ABC News and the Washington Post found. So what they have said here is that with a new post and a new poll, most of the Americans want gay marriage. Well, first of all, the poll wasn't that extensive, but as we see in the news, each state, one by one, is beginning to turn that way, and we know that the outcome is going to be just like Sodom and Gomorrah and just like Noah's, and they're getting to it. Again, one of those roads that is in the outside merging into the center. All of these things are happening in the same generation. That's exactly what Jesus Christ said was going to happen. When you shall see all these things, look up and know your redemption draws nigh. It's near.